Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, Around the World in 80 Plants, presented by Nat Hab Expedition Leader Andrea Serena. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Take it away, Andrea.
Hello, thanks, Rob. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much to be here with us today again. Okay, let's start this long journey. Um, Let me present myself. My name is Andrea. I'm a naturalist guide since 2016. I guide in different areas, different environments, but let's say I'm more specialized in alpine habitat and biodiversity. Especially in deep love with the Dolomites. That also brought me to become one of the official Dolomites National Park guides. I teach environmental education, and of course, more than proud to be part of the Nat Hab team since 2019. Today, I have again the privilege to travel with you around the world, as we already did months ago with Around the World in 80 Animals. We will discover together some interesting plants that populates our planet, more precisely 80 species, as there were 80 days in which the protagonist of the world famous novel Around the World in 80 Days to finish a magical journey that has fascinated millions of readers. So, first of all, thanks again to the great writer Jules Verne, a true travel and nature lover, one of the first that gave the start to the science fiction novel. So, because we are all science and biodiversity lovers here, let's create our own journey dedicated to nature. We will visit again many countries through all the continents, and at each stop, there will be one or more species of plants to mention, as well as discover the trips which, together with NetApp, might be possible to see these plants in their natural habitat all over the world, of course. Like it already happened with the other webinars. You will see me sometimes in some of the slides in photo taken in some of the places where we will travel together today. Just like I'm there traveling with you. We will travel clockwise, starting from the place I live, from Italy, to discover then some European species, to move then towards the Middle East, to Asia, to Oceania, the Antarctica, the Americas, then Africa, and finally back to Europe to close our long journey. Well, let's start. Enjoy the flight. Our first stop is the magical Venice Lagoon. Like migratory birds, we will fly from Venice, a place where man and nature have cohabited for millennia and where human settlements have been present since prehistoric times. This is a place governed by the waters with supplies of fresh water coming down from the Alps, which suddenly collide with the salty ones of the Adriatic Sea. This creates a particular environment where sometimes unique plant species live. So the plant chosen to begin our journey is the Venetian glasswort, an endemism of this area. This is a protected plant that was once widely used in cooking, with its delicate and salty flavor reminiscent of the ones of the asparagus. Before leaving, let's mention a special tree as well, perhaps little known but fundamental for this city, the black alder. It is the typical tree that lives near river watercourses, swamps, and muddy places, let's say. Much of Venice was built on older piles that was planted in the bottom of the lagoon, millions of poles. Why? Because this wood, once wet, hardens very, very much, becoming almost impossible to destroy. Continuing our flight, we come across my beloved Dolomites, in which valley is one of my favorite flower grows. A beautiful orchid called Lady Sleeper, probably the most famous and spectacular orchid in Europe, which we can see here on the right. Another flower that is very special to me is the rock Rapunzel, one of the most beautiful and showy ornaments of the vertical cliffs. It inhabits exclusively the humid crevices of the limestone rocky walls. The shape of the flowers inspired some legends in the Dolomites, in fact. Uh, it is thought that these flowers are like hands that come out from the rocks and are commonly called witches' fingers. It's an amazing flower. Still in the Alps, Eastern Alps, here is Triglav. This is the highest mountain in Slovenia. Slovenia is a fascinating country where Nat Hab takes you on a beautiful journey that also includes Croatia. In these places, we find an amazing alpine flora, of which we mentioned the Julian Alps poppy, which belongs to that group of small poppy that colonize uh, high altitude environments. And the species, again, is endemic to the Julian Alps, so we find it only there and nowhere else in the planet. Going down to the Mediterranean coasts, we find ourselves in countries such as Greece, Israel, Palestine, Jordan, lands where a severe climate does not frighten a plant which has been known for thousands and thousands of years and which became perhaps one of the most famous plants on the planet, the olive tree. Here we are. The use of this plant has a very, very ancient origin. In Greek mythology, it is said that the creation of the olive tree can be attributed to the goddess Athena. In fact, it has always been considered sacred tree. This specimen is beautiful, by the way. Our journey continued towards continental Asia, first crossing the mountainous region of Caucasus, where we find amazing countries such as Armenia, the area of origin of beautiful plants such as the Persian silk tree. The specific epithet Ulybrissin, which we see in the Latin scientific name, is a corruption of the Persian word Guliabrisham, which means silk flower. Beautiful flower, this one. Heading southeast now, here is Iran, which among its desert and mountains hides a vegetation rich in species in some areas. We mentioned the Persian ironwood. This is native to Iran's Caspian region and Azerbaijan as well, and again is endemic of those lands, specifically of the Alborz Mountains, a tree that is at its best in autumn when the tones of red and purple create pure magic, as you can see. Iran immediately leads us as well to Pangranet, This is in fact one of the lands of origin of this tree that produces exceptional fruits. The juice of 100 grams of aerials, this is what the pomegranate seeds are called. Well, they contain double the antioxidants present in the same quantity of blackberries, 3 times more than blueberries, and 4 times more than oranges. Um, Fantastic. Okay, we resume our flight, still towards the east, and we begin to see over there an enormous, marvelous country where Nat Hab organizes amazing trips, talking about India, a land where biodiversity knows how to amaze. Imagine the flora of India is one of the richest of the planet, more than 18,000 species of flower and plants, which basically represents over 6% of the world's plant species. We couldn't help but choose the national Indian flower, the Indian lotus, also known as sacred lotus. One one of the unforgettable trips that Nat Hab offers in this land is definitely the Grand India Wildlife Adventure. Is just fantastic. More characteristic of arid and water poor environments, here is a tree native to India, but also native in Sri Lanka, the umbrella thorn. It is a thorny shrub with characteristic white, gentle flowers. It is a beautiful tree, as it is the trip there called Sri Lanka Wildlife and Cultural Treasures, an amazing one. Um, Looking north now, here is the majesty of the Himalayan chain, sacred, imposing, magical mountains home to iconic trees such as the Himalayan cedar, a species native to the western side of the Himalayas. Um, the name Deodara derives from the ancient Sanskrit Devadar, which means tree of the gods. Of course, due to the connection with the Himalayas that are considered sacred. It is almost sacred to me, being my favorite mammal, a legendary animal that you might have the chance to observe during a Nat Hab trip to these mystical lands. The title of the trip say it all: Land of the Snow Leopard. Wow. The Himalayas take us to Nepal, from which we descend towards the green plains of the country, land of amazing biodiversity. We can admire, for example, at the Chitwan National Park. A beautiful tree to mention, of which we have fossil traces dating back almost 50 million years ago, is the Shorea robusta, commonly called the sal tree, sacred in the Hindu tradition and associated to the god Vishnu. Amazing. An unforgettable journey is precisely the one that will take you between Nepal and Bhutan, a still little known country that opened its door to tourism not many years ago, but never in an obsessive way. And let's say, like, pushing away the mass tourism that takes a lot and leaves a little, right? So let's say goodbye to Bhutan by mentioning its national flower, the beautiful blue poppy. Beautiful. This flower lives in this plant lives in humid and shaded areas, in mountain meadows and on rocky slopes as well. We continue our flight towards Southeast Asia and stop in Thailand. Um, we stop in Thailand because we have to search for a shocking and unique organism, the giant Rafflesia, one of the largest flowers in the world. It is found in the rainforest of southern Thailand, but also in peninsular Malaysia. These species. The red flowers typically have diameter of up to 3 feet and have a really typical awful smell of rotten meat, of course, to attract flies for pollination. A specimen found in 2007 in Malaysia measured 44 inches, which is impressive for a flower. Excuse me. Ready to continue? Keep going. There's China down there. Let's check it out. I don't know about you, but when thinking about China, I can't help but I immediately, I mean, I think straight away about pandas, of course, but also about one of the most famous plants in the world, the bamboo. A species I'd like to mention is the hardy dragon. Why? Because this plant is a significant source of food for the giant panda and one of its favorite. The scientific name comes from another ancient Greek word that means dragon head. Another flower that I want to show you is the butterfly bush on the right that attracts many species of Lepidoptera, so of butterflies, thanks to the scent and the sugary substances present in the flower, inside the flower. It is a beautiful plant, native to northwestern China, and a species I know very well as it is now naturalized in Europe, here in Europe. Here was introduced around the end of the 19th century for ornamental purposes, but it soon proved to be a pest as it easily adapts to any type of soil and resists very well the cold weather. It is then what we call an alien species outside Asia. And it has been demonstrated that this plant is capable of modifying the fauna of the environment in which it is introduced. Fortunately, if the Buddleia is well integrated with other indigenous plants, the fauna increase, attracting population of certain butterfly species, and so they are predators. Lot of Coleoptera, for example. Okay, we are exploring the Far East, so we must stop in Japan, a land that has botanical species among its symbols. The most famous is certainly the Japanese cherry tree called sakura, widespread in Japan, but also in Korea and China. It is a type of ornamental cherry tree much appreciated for its spring flowering that create magical moment, a magical moment called Anami, which attracts millions of visitors to Japan every year. The other emblematic tree is without doubts the Japanese maple, originally from Japan and Korea, also highly appreciated in the bonsai technique, thanks to its great adaptability to pot cultivation. it's time to go to Oceania. But first, there's another place in Asia where we have to stop, and we stop there with pleasure. Magical Borneo. Here, the plants put on a show with beautiful species, including many orchids, of which we mentioned the gold of Kinabalu orchid. Its Latin name recall that of Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild, member of a famous family of Swiss bankers, but especially very famous orchid collectors. The flower is rarely seen outside its environment. It is, in fact, rare among collectors because not easy at all to find on the market, and because it is difficult to manage. But we prefer to observe it in its natural habitat, right? So no problem at all. Here we are in Oceania now. The first land we encounter in this paradise is New Guinea, which is divided in half between Asia and Oceania. Um, this huge island is considered a jewel of biodiversity, and a famous study confirms very well what I said. Few years ago, 99 plant experts from all over the world took part in a very, very important research in New Guinea, establishing that on the surface of the island there are 13,600 and something species of plants, a number that rightfully makes New Guinea the most floristically diverse island in the world. Imagine it's 19% more floral species than Madagascar. Truly amazing. Truly amazing. It is difficult to mention just one species, and therefore we choose one of the most famous, the New Guinea impatiens, native to Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands as well, which hybrids and varieties are globally appreciated for the beauty and the colors of the flowers. For sure, you saw this flower before. Time to go. We already see a boundless country waiting for us, spectacular Australia, an aboriginal land that hides living beings that are unique. It's difficult to name just a few species of plants, so I will follow my heart and memories. Having been Australia one of my homes during my youth, the first plant is the mimosa, which, due to its characteristics as an ornamental plant, became famous all over the world. It easily connects me with my native land. In fact, here in Italy, it is the flower symbol of Women's Day, March the 8th. And here there is the custom of giving it as a gift to the women we love. It's a beautiful, beautiful flower. I have, by the way, a beautiful tree of mimosa here in my garden. I love it. Let's now mention what is perhaps the most famous Australian plant, the eucalyptus. The eucalyptus that count more or less 2,800 species. Crazy. These three over there are commonly called gum trees. Among the many species, there is, as you can see, the river red gum. But straight away, the eucalyptus reconnect us to orchids. Sorry about that. You will hear the word orchids many times because I love them. I mean, orchid to me is the perfect flower. Anyway, Um, Eucalyptus, again, connecting us to orchid, of which we mentioned the large duck orchid. Why? Because, well, it's found in southern and southeastern Australia and Tasmania, but especially this plant grows in eucalyptus forests. It's very curious because it looks like a flying duck, as you can see here in the picture. Um, another fantastic place, one of my favorite in the world is New Zealand. It is easy to think of a plant that characterizes these lands because, as we know, the symbol of New Zealand, uh, made in general famous by the All Blacks, so the New Zealand national rugby team, is the silver fern, um, called ponga in Maori language, that is used as the unofficial flag of the nation as well. Um, Other species that I would like to mention are the small kiwa kiwa, with this cute name, found often along streams, and a beautiful climbing species, the leatherleaf fern, which, as you can see, is very particular because it's characterized by thick and fleshy rounded leaves, very particular and very, very nice. Okay, we are now heading south towards an hypnotic place where the colors give way to white, where the few living beings must undertake a daily battle for survival. Here we are in Antarctica. It seems impossible, right, that any type of plant could live or rather survive in these lands, but the reality is surprising because continental Antarctica has 20 to 30 species of mosses, 90 species of lichens, one species of liverwort, and many species of terrestrial algae. The only angiosperm plants that grow in Antarctica are two: the Antarctic hairgrass and the Antarctic pearlwort. Unfortunately, human activities had allowed the entry of another angiosperm, the annual meadowgrass, an invasive cosmopolitan herbaceous plant that creeps into habitats disturbed by man. Uh, Traveling to Antarctica is the dream of many, and Nat Hab makes it possible. So check it out. We leave Antarctica, unfortunately, to now reach the southern American continent, more precisely, the wildlands of Patagonia, a treasure nestled between Chile and Argentina. Um, Due to the high variability in temperature, precipitation, and elevation, there are various vegetation typologies in Patagonia. The species I mentioned are the Rauli and the Lenga beech, beautiful trees. Beyond forest areas, we find steppes and pasture with low shrubs that's dominated by the Coiron dulce, that's how it's called, the Festuca gracillima, that resist in area with low precipitation and very strong winds. And finally, the amazing Calafate, which is considered the symbol of Patagonia, is an evergreen shrub whose berries are edible and used to make very, very good jam. A legend says that by eating these berries, you return again to Patagonia at least another time in your life. What I can suggest is to go there with Nat Hab for the amazing photo tour. I remember I remember I was in Patagonia a long time ago in autumn, and one of the best scenery and landscape I can remember. These colors in these wild, never-ending lands, the colors of the Calafate, this red, this purple, is unbelievable, unbelievable. We keep going north along the Great American Continent, and little by little we come across an increasingly green, intense, lush vegetation. We have arrived in the Amazon area, the lungs of the world. Our first stop is in Brazil, a land rich in diverse environments and exceptional ecosystems. It is impossible to give the right space to the Brazilian flora, and therefore we only mention a couple of species that are well known in general, because especially the first one is very appreciated, and a lot of us have some at home. One is, of course, the amazing guarana, native of the in the Brazilian Amazon, and domesticated by the indigenous community over there more than 2,000 years ago. The limits of the Amazon forest coincide with those of the domain of the Pará rubber tree, native to this environment, exploited by man who transforms its sap latex into rubber. Um, just to remember, more than a fifth of the Amazon rainforest disappeared from 1970 onwards, which is tragic. Anyway, the Great Amazon River Expedition could be the perfect choice to enjoy this incredible place. Let's go back to the mountains. Time for the Andes to find one of the iconic plant species of these lands, the Titanca, also known as the Queen of the Andes. This is mostly because this plant, which is beautiful, is huge. It's very tall, very huge, and impressive because sometimes you find it after, mm, miles and miles of, maybe small shrubs or just herbaceous plant, and then suddenly, poof, this giant, amazing, beautiful giant. Anyway, um, it reaches and exceeds the 32 feet in height. The Titanca. It's endemic of these mountains, both in Peru and Bolivia. The most incredible thing about the Titanca is that the flower blooms 80 to 150 years of life, and after flowering the plant dies. So basically this is the slowest flowering plant in the planet. It's just a shocking biology. Another plant from these lands that I wanted to show you is unfortunately now considered extinct in the wild in its native lands, and is found cultivated or naturalized in places where it has never existed before. It is the angel's trumpet, Bruckmansia arborea, beautiful flower, this one. The leaves of this species contain an high concentration of alkaloids, including scopolamine, a toxic substance used by tribes and indigenous population as poison for hunting. Check out the fantastic Nat Hab trips there. Um, if we talk about symbolic plants, it is easy to mention the following two. The cantuta, also known as the Peruvian magic trees. This is an evergreen shrub with beautiful bright pink flowers. It's the national flower of Peru and one of the two national flowers of Bolivia, the other being the patuju, with red petals, a yellow floral tube, and a green calyx, reflecting the colors of the Bolivian national flag. Very nice. We are now on the equatorial line, latitude 0, in a country where the tropical climate and the Andean altitudes give life to a unique floral richness, rich especially if you consider the marvelous orchids, of which this country is the undisputed kingdom, Ecuador. Just think, imagine out of a global total of more or less 28,000 species of orchids, more than 4,000 species are found in Ecuador, of which 1,300 are endemic. It's unbelievable. We see only 3 species here, all of them extremely beautiful. Starting from left, the Dracula orchid, also called monkey face orchid. The particular scientific name was inspired by the fact that the sepals of the orchid resemble Dracula's teeth. Then the tiger orchid, and the last one, the incredible Oiger trisitella, um, an epiphytic plant, so mostly found on trees. Used also as a medicinal plant for coughs, to temper the heat of the stomach, for poor digestion, infected wounds, headaches, as well as anti-inflammatory and fever reliever. Not bad. Uh, there can be a nature trip around the world without a stop at the Galapagos Island. We are in Ecuador, so we must go to Galapagos as well. From Galapagos, I show you the lava cactus, one of the species that fascinated me the most when I was there, because this plant is capable of growing on lava rocks where apparently nothing can grow, with this tenacity. It's beautiful to see that. This is a trip that can be missed on the list of any biodiversity lover. And if you like photography, there's nothing better than the Nat Hab Galapagos wildlife photo expedition trip. Trust me, something unforgettable. Um, we leave now beautiful South America to discover and slowly ascend Central America, where we have to stop in a place where, again, Nat Hab takes us on a fantastic trip. Here we are in Costa Rica. Ladies and gentlemen, in Costa Rica, small country, there are 26 national parks and a total of 161 protected areas. A wave of investing on the future that should be taken as an example by many countries around the world, I think. From Costa Rica, we mentioned 2 species: national tree, the Guanacaste, and the national flower, the Guayamorada, which is a beautiful flower, beautiful color, beautiful flower, beautiful shape, just amazing. As is amazing, the Guanacaste, that there in Costa Rica gives name also to one of the region of Costa Rica. Um, Not far from there, there's a country where we can admire one of the animal species that performs a migration that became legend, the monarch butterfly. Now, I was thinking not far from there. It depends, but we are flying very quickly, so let's say it's just next to Costa Rica. Let's say that. So we are talking about Mexico, and we therefore dedicate space to the sacred four called Oyamel. Um, Oyamel is the name. It is called in the Nahuatl language, native to the mountains on central and southern Mexico and western Guatemala. These are the places we found this beautiful tree. This species has a great ecological importance as it hosts millions and millions of monarchs every year. To see from close this beautiful animal, if you like, the Nat Hab tree named Kingdom of the Monarch is the best you can get. Um, Another famous plant from Mexico, a cactus this time, um, is the peyote. The peyote is native to Mexico, where it grows spontaneously, but not only there, as it can be found also in southern Texas in the US. This cactus was once, as we know, used by Native Americans as hallucinogen in shamanic rituals. Another Mexican plant used for centuries in shamanism is the diviner sage. This is a psychoactive plant widespread in nature, almost only in Mexico, in the area inhabited by the Mazatec people of the Oaxaca region, who use it in religious rituals and rituals of divination and healing. You know, um, Interesting. All right. After thousand and thousand of miles, we now land in your immense territory, United States, home of amazing living beings. The native flora of the US includes an incredible 17,000 species of vascular plants. Of course, I'm forced to name just a few species, and for you, I chose endemic plants that only your country hosts naturally. Um, the first species is one of those plants that I love since I was a child, the carnivorous or insectivorous plants, and of which I mentioned the cobra plant, endemic, particularly to the mountainous area of Oregon and California. It's called cobra plant due to the typical nectariferous tongue, similar to that of a cobra, which we can clearly see here in the picture. Moving on to some of the beautiful flowers that give color to your environments. Here is the Colorado columbine, endemic to central United States. Flower, a flower that I particularly like is the chocolate lily, species widespread on the western side of Canada and United States, which you may be able to observe in Yellowstone as well. Let me mention then one of the most famous Nat Hab tree, Yellowstone Ultimate Wolf and Wildlife Safari. I'm very jealous of your national parks. Let's continue. Another plant with beautiful flowers is the false lily of the valley, native in Canada and northeastern US. This one is very important as food in spring for the white-tailed deer because it is very rich in calcium and phosphorus, which are essential for the ungulate With Nat Hab, this plant can be observed, for example, in the Acadia National Park. Last one, the Clintonia borealis, known as the blue bid. Simply beautiful. Moving further north, we arrive in the wildlands of Alaska, of which we mentioned the symbolic tree, the astonishing conifer, the Sitka spruce. The specific name refers to the island of Sitka where the first specimen was collected and studied. It is by far the spruce that reaches the largest dimension, and considering the maximum height, is one of the tallest conifer species in the planet. It can reach 230 feet in height, and exceptionally, the 290, which is, I mean, incredible. The ultimate Alaska Wildlife Safari would probably be the best Nat Hab trip for you over there to admire the Sitka. Anyway, if we talk about records and heights, here on the right, uh, we are not in Alaska, but if we mention giants, why not to put this on? There is a plant that seems to touch the sky, the impressive Sequoia sempervirens, the coast redwood. This tree is simply the tallest in the world, with the very famous and legendary specimen called Hyperion in Redwood National Park, reaching 380 feet of height. Wow. Don't take your jacket off. Let's stay in the cold a little longer. We are now in Greenland. And finally, we mentioned a marine plant, the eelgrass, a tenacious aquatic plant, unique among seagrasses because it can withstand short periods outside the water. Uh, Returning to the mainland, you may have the opportunity to observe a cute little white flower, the Arctic draba, that has a circumpolar distribution in the northern hemisphere. Nat Hab organized an amazing trip in Greenland that bring you to magical Iceland as well. It's called Iceland and Greenland, a Nordic discovery. Okay, enough with the jacket. Let's put the t-shirt back on and start a long journey south, crossing the Atlantic to reach the huge African continent. Here we are along the Western African coast. First up, Namibia, of which we mentioned the Aukureb, endemic to northern Namibia and found on limestone and conglomerate rocks in parts of the Namib Desert. Another endemic plant that challenges the difficult condition of Namibia is the elephant foot. Uh, there are an estimated 30 to 35 small population of this plant that unfortunately appear to be affected by over collecting. Ignorance and the black market, market, sorry, as we know, are two huge problems for biodiversity. A recommended trip there is surely the Great Namibia Wildlife Safari. From Namibia, we move on to our neighbor of in Botswana, where we take you to unforgettable places such as the Okavango Delta with the trip called the Secluded Botswana Safari. In this beautiful country, we can spot plants typical of these places, such as the Makalani palms, and particular plants such as the sausage tree. Sorry. The sausage tree fruit is a very large berry that can reach 3.2 feet in length and weigh up to 10 kilos. Impressive. It contains lot of seeds, and this plant provides nourishment to numerous animals such as baboons, warthogs, elephants, giraffes, who then contribute to spread the seeds in the environment with their feces. Uh, well, now we reach one of the largest islands in the world after New Guinea. It's time for a magical land where the geographical isolation in millions and millions of years has left a unique biodiversity. Of course, this is Madagascar. Um, if we talk about the flora of this country, I immediately think of baobabs. Um, Consider that six of its eight species are endemic and found only there, and we see all of them in this slide. So from top left, we have the giant baobab, the Madagascar baobab, the Perrier baobab, the Phony baobab, the Suarez baobab, and the Za baobab. They are beautiful trees. This is a beautiful country with beautiful people. Beautiful, just like the Nat Hab trip there. Check out the Madagascar Wildlife Adventure. Unique. It's sad to leave Madagascar, but our journey around the world in 80 plants isn't over yet. Almost, but not yet. Let's see what our adventure will bring us now. It's time for a very long flight to Europe in an enchanting place where not only the famous historical gardens cheer the visitors, sight, but above all, the wonderful white flower that give a touch of magic to the meadows in spring and summer. I'm talking about the Cotswolds, an hill ranch located in the central area of England, where Nat Hab takes you on an unforgettable trip. Here are 10 species of wildflowers that make art in these lands. Let's list them like top models at a fashion show. So from top left, the common self healer, the field scabious, the cowslip, the early purple orchid, the common hairbell, the common kidney vetch, the bee orchid, the green-winged orchid, the common rest harrow, and the viper's bugloss. Beautiful. We are almost at the end of this very long trip around the world, and to conclude it, we must now leave the UK and fly southwards, reaching the Mediterranean. Here in the west, there's a country where we can enjoy beautiful views, very interesting biodiversity and culture, good food, and let me tell you, some excellent red wine. This is Portugal. When I think about Portugal, I think about how craftsmanship is centered on a natural product used and appreciated for thousands of years, the cork. Therefore, in this slide, the protagonist plant is the cork oak. Beautiful tree, native to southwestern Europe, but also northwestern Africa, that in Portugal has become a real symbol. Here we are with number 8. We are flying for the last time toward east, where we started this journey, Venice. But this time we will not finish in the lagoon, but in the area where I live, which is right in the middle between that wonderful city and the fantastic Dolomite. It is here in this hilly area that we conclude this journey, mentioning an unexpected plant. After having seen endemic native plants, it is precisely with an alloctonous or alien species that we conclude our journey. It is a highly symbolic plant because it connects your continent with my continent. This is a plant that arrived from North America at the beginning of the 17th century and which now covers in certain areas up to 70% of the forest. I'm talking about the black locust. These tree here conquered space formerly belonging to native tree species, but it has helped in the subsistence of European people for generations. Those people who lived until after World War II in my region, which is rich today, but which was once among the poorest in Europe. So much that we used to call ourselves bisnenti, a word of our dialect that means 2 times without nothing. While the black locust gave us firewood, material for construction, leaves to feed the domestic animal. Our friends, the bees, from this tree obtain nectar, which then become excuse me, a delicious and gentle honey, and then those wonderful white flowers, typical of May and June, with this color, which connect me to childhood memories when we used to collect them, to immerse them in a simple batter of water and flour, and then with the help of our grandmothers who fry them, the result was a sort of pancakes with the most delicious flavors. So this is the last plant. Last one. Once again, last slide. Once again, we can't miss a slide dedicated to our important partner, WWF. And given the topic covered, the plants, there will be a lot of projects to mention in which WWF is at the forefront for environmental protection. I want to mention perhaps one of the project in which WWF is pushing the most lately, given the emergency and given the importance of these key environment for all of us, the Amazon. And so let's know a little bit more the fire response project. As we know, the burning Amazon is a direct consequences of deforestation. Through fire, parts of the Amazon forest are transformed into land for agriculture and pastoralism. WWF is focusing on immediately fighting fires in the most vulnerable areas. And this is done by equipping protected areas, workers with essential supplies, including emergency vehicles and equipment to fight ongoing fires, but aware that to stop the fire and deforestation emergency, it is necessary to act at a political level. WWF is also exerting political pressure for the future of the Amazon, currently through direct support in the economic evaluation of the devastation produced by the fires. To close, I want to remind you that since the beginning of human civilization 2,000 years ago, what I said, 12,000 years ago, sorry, we eliminated 3,000 billion trees, of which 2,000 billions in the last 200 years. It's time to take serious action. Here we are at the end of this long journey. Before letting you fly back home, I'd like to thank you for your attention. I hope you traveled comfortably and that you like all the protagonists of this presentation. Thanks again. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Now, before we start with the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your GoToWebinar control panel. All right, so let's get to some of these questions. So, is there Nat Hab expeditions that are devoted exclusively to plants, or are plants just sort of part of the program?
Well, we focus on biodiversity, right? Um, of course, uh, let me talk in general. Lot of guests sometimes prefer maybe to spot a very nice animal species, but we can't forget that Neta bring us to places where we can really admire true jewels of the biodiversity that still resist in this planet. So, of course, we focus on both sides of this pure magic. Um, so, not only animals, not only fauna, but incredible experiences and incredible adventure that will bring you so close to, in this case, very special plants that in some cases really shock you in a really positive way. So don't forget to check out all the Nat Hab trips, because if you are not only nature lover but specifically plants lover, you can get great satisfaction and unforgettable memories.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrea. And we have lost your display on the screen. I don't know if you
Oh,
can get that back for us. Um, hey, there it is.
yeah.
Um, so one of our guests notes that they had some pink lady slippers in New Hampshire. So are they likely to occur in other places in the U.S.? How did they get here? Do we know how that happens?
Well, when we talk about orchids, I mean, these are very ancient plants. Um, so we go back when, to Pangea, and when the continents were together. That was the start for some genus of orchids. Then keep in mind that orchids have the tiniest seeds in the world. So, and a single seed pod can have up to 3 million seeds inside. They are so small they can only be seen under a microscope. So a very strong wind can take these seeds and bring it to really to another continent. So it's a never-ending story that is truly amazing. Please check out orchids if you don't know that very well, because a huge world will open in front of you with something amazing. Orchids are just mind blowing. So basically, that's the reason.
All right, thank you so much. So, can you explain to us what we've had a couple of questions about what you mean by endemic?
Endemic, so a species can be autochthonous to a place, but we can find that species in other continents or places around the world. I make you a simple example. For example, let's say the red fox. Okay, I can find the red fox here in my garden tonight. I can find it in London looking for some food, outside an house, maybe, uh, next to a rubbish bin. I can find the red fox in Ukraine. I can find the red fox in Norway. Okay. Then there is the alien species, the alloctonous species, that's made by the human touch. So if I find a red fox in Australia, which is now, there is a huge number of red foxes there, but that's not native in that country. So the man brought the species there for some reason. And finally, the endemism. What's endemic? Endemic is a species we find only in a certain area in the world and is impossible to find somewhere else. For example, some of the flowers I showed you before, let me check here. Um, okay, this amazing flower here, okay? This Rapunzel. When there was the last glaciation that ends here in Europe, more or less 10,000, 12,000 years ago, before the end of this ice age, this flower to escape the ice had only one possibility, to escape on the top of the mountains. Once the Wurm glaciation, this is the name of the very last glaciation, hence, these plants stay in those small area. Maybe now we can find it at lower altitude, but it didn't move. it remain in a small area. So that's an endemism. I find an endemism in a small area in, a place around the planet. And for me, then is impossible to find that species again in another place. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much for that thoughtful answer, Andrea. Unfortunately, that will be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you for your closing comments.
Well, I thank you again very, very much um, for being here together with us today to admire these 80 species. I hope I've made you a little more curious about the world of plants, which is truly something exceptional and surprising. I wish you a lot of health and many, many trees, but above all, I wish you to find every day a different flower there waiting for you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Rob. See you soon.
Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. So if you are interested in information on how you can travel with Nat Hab, give us a call at 800-543-8917 or send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathap.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll
Goodbye.
see you next time.